When America entered World War II in December 1941, it sent its sons to fight on two fronts simultaneously, across the Pacific and across Europe at the same time. The battles that followed became legendary. By the time the guns finally went silent in 1945, America had lost more than 400,000 of its people in uniform. That number became one of the defining symbols of the heaviest price a nation can pay. 400,000 lives, every single one documented, mourned, and remembered. Russia has now surpassed that number. Not over 4 years of fighting Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan. Not across 2 oceans. In a single war, against a single country. A country that, just a few years ago, Russia's military machine expected to conquer in 72 hours. Let that land for a moment. Every single American life lost in World War II. Russia has already crossed that line in Ukraine. But here's what should keep Putin awake at night. The number is not slowing down. It's accelerating. The losses Russia suffered last month alone would have made front-page headlines in any conflict in modern history. And yet, in Moscow, the official response is silence. The numbers are classified. The funerals are quiet. The coffins keep coming. Today, we are going to walk you through exactly what those numbers look like, what they mean for Russia's ability to keep fighting, and why the most dangerous part of this story is not what's happening on the battlefield. It's what's happening inside Russia itself. Let's put the numbers in context, because context is everything here. The United States entered World War II after Pearl Harbor and fought until August 1945. Nearly 4 years of war against Germany, Japan, and Italy on 2 separate fronts simultaneously. The total American military death toll, approximately 405,000 men and women. According to reporting by the Telegraph in February 2026, Russia's total casualties in Ukraine, killed, wounded, and missing, had already surpassed 1.25 million. That is not a Ukrainian government figure. That is not propaganda. That figure comes from Western intelligence officials tracking the war in real time. The Center for Strategic and International Studies, one of Washington's most respected defense think tanks, placed the number at 1.2 million in January 2026, including between 275,000 and 325,000 battlefield deaths. The UK Ministry of Defence put casualties at 1,168,000 in December 2025. Former CIA Director William Burns said 1.1 million in an interview published in January 2026. And the Netherlands Military Intelligence and Security Service went even further in April 2026, estimating that Russia had suffered 1.2 million permanent losses, including more than 500,000 dead. 500,000 dead. Let's put that next to another number. The Soviet Union lost around 15,000 soldiers during 10 years of war in Afghanistan. Russia has lost more than that in a single month in Ukraine. According to CSIS, Russian battlefield fatalities in Ukraine are more than 17 times greater than Soviet losses in the Afghan War during the 1980s. They are 11 times greater than during Russia's First and Second Chechen Wars combined, and they are more than 5 times greater than all Russian and Soviet wars put together since World War II. Read that again. Every war Russia and the Soviet Union have fought since 1945 – Korea, Afghanistan, Chechnya, Georgia, Syria – combined, they do not come close to what Russia has already lost in Ukraine. Here is the part of this story that nobody in Moscow wants discussed. Because it is not just how many Russian soldiers are dying, it is how they are dying that tells you everything about where this war is actually heading. In almost every major conflict throughout modern history, from World War I through Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan, the ratio of wounded soldiers to killed soldiers has consistently run somewhere between 3 to 1 and 5 to 1. For every soldier killed, 3 to 5 come back wounded. That ratio exists because modern battlefield medicine works. Medics reach casualties. Medevac helicopters fly. Field hospitals save lives even after catastrophic injuries. It has been one of the defining features of warfare in the last 100 years. On March 10, 2026, President Zelensky stood before cameras and presented data drawn directly from Ukrainian intelligence assessments. 62% of Russian casualties in Ukraine are killed. Only 38% are wounded. That is a kill-to-wounded ratio of nearly 2 to 1, the exact inverse of what modern warfare is supposed to look like. A source in the Ukrainian presidential office told the Kyiv Independent that this shift represents a dramatic change from the early stages of the war. And the cause is drones. FPV drones, first-person view, small, fast, and cheap, carry enough explosive payload to kill a soldier outright. They do not wound and leave someone to be evacuated. They do not create a casualty that needs medical attention. They detonate on contact, and they kill. Oleksiy Melnik, co-director of the Kyiv-based Razumkov Center and a former Ukrainian Defense Ministry official, estimates that drones now account for 70 to 80% of all Russian casualties on the battlefield. And Russia has no effective answer for them. The numbers from March 2026 confirm this at a level that is almost impossible to process. In the month, Russia set its deadliest record of the entire war, 35,351 casualties. 96% of those confirmed losses were caused by Ukrainian drones. Artillery and small arms fire combined accounted for the remaining 4%, 96%. Killed by drones, at a cost to Ukraine of approximately $882 per confirmed strike. If you want to stay ahead of what is actually happening in this war, not what they want you to believe, not the state media version, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. This is the kind of analysis we bring you every day. And what comes next is the part the Kremlin is most desperate to keep quiet. For 3 years, Russia answered every wave of casualties with another wave of recruitment. Enormous cash bonuses, sometimes the equivalent of several years' worth of civilian salary, pulled men from the poorest regions of the country, from Siberia, from the far north, from the North Caucasus. Putin understood that as long as the bodies were coming from regions far from Moscow and St. Petersburg, the political cost would stay manageable. The grief would be distant. The pressure would be contained. That strategy is now collapsing. In February 2026, the Telegraph reported something that 6 months earlier would have seemed impossible to most analysts. For the first time since the invasion began, Russia is losing more soldiers than it is able to recruit. The Kremlin's own internal target for 2026 was to bring in between 1,100 and 1,150 new soldiers per day. The actual figure has dropped to approximately 940 per day. Ukraine's I Want to Live initiative, which provides communication channels for Russian soldiers considering surrender, calculated that if the recruitment shortfall continues at its current pace, Russia will face a deficit of 65,000 soldiers in 2026 alone. And that assumes casualties stop climbing. They are not climbing, they are accelerating. For 5 consecutive months, from December 2025 through April 2026, Russia's monthly losses have exceeded the number of soldiers it actually brought into service. 5 months in a row, the math is moving in one direction only, and it is not toward Moscow. But the crisis goes deeper than recruitment numbers on a spreadsheet. Reports coming out of the front line describe wounded Russian soldiers being sent back into combat before they have recovered. In some cases, men are dying from injuries without having received any medical treatment. Ukrainian military analyst Oleksiy Melnik, citing testimony from Russia's own pro-war military bloggers, described a battlefield culture where Russian commanders place no value on the survival of the wounded. And those stories are circulating inside Russia. The families know. The communities know. Word travels even when the internet is restricted, and state media says nothing. Men in the regions where recruitment bonuses once seemed like a reasonable trade are now weighing those bonuses against what is coming back from Ukraine. And the calculation is changing. Russia does not publish its casualty figures. Putin's government has classified the data. It has criminalized the spread of what it calls false information about the military. Journalists who have attempted to investigate the real toll have faced prosecution. Families who speak publicly about their losses have faced pressure. The official version of this war has no mass graves, no mounting death toll, and no crisis. But secrets at this scale do not stay secret. Not when the bodies are coming home to every region of a country that covers 11 time zones. Russian state media reported in January 2026 that approximately 250,000 unemployed veterans of the war had returned to Russia from Ukraine. The story disappeared from state media almost immediately after it was published, clearly pulled to prevent public anxiety, but not before it had been seen. 250,000 veterans, back home, many of them permanently damaged, and that is only the ones the state was forced to briefly acknowledge. According to Rand Corporation, Russia's labor minister told Putin last year the country will face a shortage of 2.4 million workers by 2030. Others put the number even higher. Much of that shortage is a direct consequence of the war. Young men killed, permanently disabled, or still deployed. industries unable to find labor, businesses competing against military salary bonuses they cannot match, inflation that has already been running at near-record highs, eating into whatever those businesses can afford to pay. Fortune magazine reported in May 2026 that ordinary Russian citizens are living with these consequences in ways the Kremlin can no longer fully conceal. Prices rising for basic goods. Communities across Siberia and the Far East with entire cohorts of young men simply missing. Families waiting for news that does not come, or news that finally does come and is the worst possible kind. One prominent Russian voice, one of the very people who was publicly supporting this war, described it in a social media post that reached millions of people. If you were to mark on a map every family that lost someone at the front, she wrote, the whole country would be burning with red dots of grief and pain. That is not a Ukrainian describing Russia. That is someone from within Russia's own public conversation. And then there is the cost efficiency calculation that the Kremlin will never let its population see. According to the commander of Ukraine's unmanned systems forces, between December 2025 and April 2026, Ukrainian drones inflicted 156,735 confirmed personnel casualties on Russian forces. The average verified cost per strike, $882. Russia is trading lives for less than the price of a used car. Here is the question that nobody in the Kremlin has a clean answer to. Russia has now lost more soldiers in Ukraine than America lost in all of World War II. It has lost more than in every single war it has fought since 1945, combined. The recruitment pipeline is running a deficit. The wounded are being returned to the front before they recover, and some are dying before they get there. The communities are quietly counting the empty chairs at the table. Putin's answer to all of this has been the same answer he has given since February 2022. Keep going, accept the losses. Wait for Ukraine or its Western supporters to exhaust themselves first. That has been the strategy. That has always been the strategy. But something is shifting. The Russian Public Opinion Research Center has now recorded Putin's approval rating falling for 7 straight consecutive weeks, reaching its lowest point since the war began. The pro-war military bloggers who once cheered every Russian advance are beginning to call the current offensive a dead end. Officials who once competed to align themselves with the Kremlin's messaging are starting to break ranks. Even people that Putin himself elevated to positions of power are beginning to speak openly about economic catastrophe in a war that cannot be won. So here is the real question. Not whether Russia will eventually run out of soldiers. The math is already pointing there. The real question is, at what point does the scale of these losses become impossible for Putin's own circle to keep absorbing? Is it when the monthly death toll crosses 50,000? Is it when the recruitment shortfall becomes impossible to paper over with new mobilization waves? Is it when the veterans coming home broken and unemployed become a political force that even the FSB cannot contain? The number has passed America's entire World War II toll. It keeps climbing. And somewhere in Moscow, in the rooms where the real decisions get made, the people closest to Vladimir Putin are watching those same numbers. They know what they mean. The only question left is how long they can pretend they do not.